happy Sunday. TRP making a sort of out-of-schedule show just because of various things that popped up through the week, but we're happy to have you guys with us. As always, if you have any things you want us to talk about on future shows, please feel free to hit us up on Facebook.com/TR Podcast. We've had some good conversations going in recent weeks, mostly making fun of the Mets, which is about what you would expect.
We actually aren't going to make fun of the Mets too much today, though.
No, we're actually possibly going to come to some Metropolitan defense.
I'm fine with that.
But
it's all about balance.
All about balance, and we got a pretty loaded show, obviously having kind of the week-plus hiatus, but we would be remiss if the opener today wasn't sort of reflective over the tragic passing of Tyler Skaggs. Tyler, unfortunately, was found unresponsive in his hotel room in Texas on July 1st. He was 27 years old. Not much has come out about that as of yet, but, remarkably well-liked around the league, very well-respected. Obviously, with his age and talent level, something you never want to see, but
definitely not.
This past Friday was the homestand return for the Angels. And they had a combined no-hitter in a 13-0 rout of the Seattle Mariners on a night that was dedicated to Tyler Skaggs. All the players wore his number 45, and his mother threw out the first pitch. She threw a heck of a strike, too.
That was pretty good, actually. That's probably where he gets it from, or got it from, I guess.
Yeah. And then Mike Trout also on his first pitch and his first at-bat hit a 454 foot home run. I mean, that was a pretty special night. You can't script things like that any better.
You really can't make those things up, and that's quite the tribute. I'm sure he's watching that from wherever he is and appreciating what the Angels did. So
it's gonna be an interesting rest of the season for them. There things like you don't want things like this to happen, but they can fuel a team as well. The Angels are kind of on the cusp of maybe a wild card spot. And, it's sad to see something like this. D. Gordon's gone through it now twice. He was around when Jose Fernandez unfortunately passed. And just, the team is rallying. The city is rallying, behind it. And, Tyler was a competitor by all accounts. And, like you said, from his view up top, has to be smiling at what his team is doing and rallying around him, and the love and the outpour of emotion and just propping up the team and the city around him.
Oh, for sure. And it's like you said, it's regardless of your fandom, the teams you like, whatever, it's you never want to see something like this happen, and to see a team rally around some, a common, athlete or person or whatever is just it's huge. I mean, that's like kind of what sports is all about, I think.
Absolutely, and we pay our respects to Tyler and his family, and just wanted to open up the show today with with our respects. But segueing from this into sort of a lower level topic, our dumpster fire of the week is going to feature somebody pretty well in Jake Arrieta. Last Saturday, he hit the Mets' Todd Frazier with a pitch.
Among other players.
But Todd had some strong words for Mr. Arrieta and ended up being the one thrown out. And then when reached for a comment after the game, Jake Arrieta said that he to just summarize that he would dent Todd Frazier's skull if he had something to come and say to him about it. Arrieta has been fined by Major League Baseball, but in terms of comments, and I mean, I know there's some frustrations. Arrieta's not living up to anything in Philadelphia these days, but I flipped things over to senior Jake Arrieta correspondent Matt Gabriel.
I laughed out loud when I read that comment because I could totally see him actually saying that. He is one of those really, really strong competitors. He thinks he's in, peak physical condition. He's like very strict about his dietary needs, his workout regimen. I mean, he's in great shape, honestly. And he's quite the fearless competitor. I remember back when they played in the wild card against Pittsburgh, he got hit by a pitch because he had hit a couple I mean, it's not something, he is unusual for doing. He hits batters quite frequently, actually. But I remember him getting hit by a pitch and confronted the pitcher and everything, and then the very next pitch that went, he stole second base. So he's one of those people that's not going to back down from any kind of challenge or whatever. I can totally see that now. Definitely out of line. Not something you want to say, especially in public to the media, but that honestly does not surprise me at all.
But I mean, there's heat of the moment stuff, and then there's like literally it's after the game, and you're like, oh, I hope he comes after me. I'm gonna put a dent in his skull. Like, at what point does it go from just like, all right, these are two competitors, to I know he was fine, but maybe there should have been a suspension or something, because that goes a little bit beyond like your normal like come at me bro type statement. That is literally, I wish to physically harm this guy.
I mean, sure. I mean, he didn't he didn't actually harm him, I guess. I mean, other than hit him by a pitch or whatever. Because then you look at you think of like Jose Bautista and Rafael Odor and getting shelled in the face. Like, that's a more immediate sort of danger, I would think, compared to saying you're going to do it if he actually ever would do that. But then you look back to a couple weeks ago with Bumgarner and Muncy, and that kind of banter is a little more part of the game, I guess.
Yeah, that's a little more fan friendly, but like and I realize it didn't come to blows or something, and Todd Frazier, who I don't know if you know this, but he was a New Jersey minor league player who grew up idolizing Derek Jeter. I'm pretty sure, and he was also very known for the Little League World Series having some breakout moments, which any single broadcast you ever see on ESPN will bring this fact up.
Oh, sure.
I think every at bat, just so it's broken down ad nauseum. Oh yeah, the Toms River, New Jersey, Little League.
He was in the Little League World Series.
Did you know that he loved Derek Jeter? But anyway. He's a fun big personality guy from everything I've seen. So like, hitters don't love getting hit. And I did see he wasn't thrown out in his head or something where you might have more umbrage, but it just seems. I don't know if it's just the Mets season kind of boiling over, because I know like Mickey Callaway was like losing his ever loving stuff over the fact that Frazier was tossed. I don't know what kind of perfect storm it is. I don't know if it's just Arrieta's personality kind of escalating it, or just Metsing themselves, for what's actually, bringing that type of behavior like out more for Arrieta. I don't know.
I think it's two teams that are struggling. I think the Mets thought that they might be able to compete a little bit in the NL East, and obviously that has not happened.
Oh, Brody was saying that they were going to go to the playoffs, so that was like the team.
Yeah, I didn't think that.
No one thought that.
And then you look at the Phillies, who I think are definitely underperforming, especially with all the moves they made in the offseason. I think it's two teams that are struggling greatly for different reasons and with different expectations applied to them. And with Arias on the injured, he's injured now, I think.
He's got a bone spur, but I think he's actually pitching today with the bone spur.
Okay. But either way, I think you have two very frustrated teams, two teams that are struggling to compete. One team that's still has some hope. I think the other team is definitely playing for next year at this point. I think a lot of that kind of fuels the fire a little bit. If this had happened between two bottom rung teams and they knew they were going to be bottom rung teams, it would be a different story, as opposed to two teams that are obviously having very disappointing seasons.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just kind of the frustrations coming to the forefront. We're going to move from this dumpster fire of a situation into our middle relief. Big news yesterday, kind of sort of ish. The Boston Red Sox acquired starting pitcher Andrew Cashner for a pair of minor leaguers from the Baltimore Orioles. Cashner this season is 9-3 with a 3.83 ERA in 96 1/3 innings and throwing a 1.194 WHIP, which is, it's okay. I mean,
he's the best pitcher on the Orioles, or was the best pitcher on the
Orioles.
He was. Just saying something.
He was responsible for the bulk of their wins. I mean, they have 25, 26 wins, and
it's him and that Means.
Yeah,
they're the only two actually throwing well.
So this benefits the Orioles, is now they can lose more and maybe get that first draft pick in 2020.
I think they're going to lose like 130 games this year.
Would it surprise you?
It would not. They could lose the rest of the season, and I wouldn't even think twice about it.
Cashner for his career, 55-82 record, 4 ERA as of today. I got this from Baseball References. Career 1.344 WHIP. Between 1.3 and 1.5 is about average to meh. You want to be kind of below that mark, and then anything below 1 WHIP is phenomenal. Cashner's been pretty consistent. I mean, he's definitely a back of the rotation type guy, even though he's had some success this year. For his career, he's had some relief. He's been used as a reliever. He's been used as a starter. I know part of the reason they probably wanted to acquire him is they have said that when Nathan Eovaldi comes back, that Eovaldi's going to be the closer to kind of steady that bullpen that's been a little bit. Not a little bit. That's been their Achilles heel this year. The Red Sox bullpen is like trash, and they haven't been getting starting pitching, or they have not been getting the quality of starting pitching that they thought they would. I mean, I don't think.
I think the starting pitch is kind of turning on a bit. But
yeah, but Sale got lit up again last night, and I don't think he's won at Fenway since last year. I'm not even kidding. I'm not saying that to be like screw Boston, screw Boston. But like that's not what you want to see. That's your ace, and I've questioned Sale a little bit. I mean, he's still a phenomenal pitcher, but obviously deteriorating maybe a little bit. That
velocity's down quite a bit this year.
The rotation hasn't lived up to what it did last year. I think the offense is still there. The Red Sox can put up some crooked numbers in a hurry, but I just think the pitching overall is an Achilles heel. And even last year, they won the World Series, and it's just from thumping their opponents because I think in the playoffs, I think Kimbrel gave up at least 1 run in every appearance he had.
Pretty much.
So you had a weak bullpen that got by on the seat of their pants, and then this year's done nothing. And I don't think that Dombrowski's going to make another move. We have a couple weeks. This year's a little bit different since there's a single trade deadline versus the waiver deadline that was in August last year, but for the past, last year, but for the past several years.
Yeah.
What do you think of this type of move? Do you think? Boston's not. They're in the wild card conversation, but if the playoffs started today, they wouldn't even be in the playoffs.
I think they still think that they can make a push in the AL. I think they could still make the playoffs. Honestly,
I do too.
I think they're good enough. They're, like you said, their offense is still pretty stellar. I think the hope that their pitching turns around. I still think they make a move for. We'll talk about that later on, but this is a pretty easy move to make. I think Cashner's easily been Baltimore's best pitcher, and compared to how he's been consistently meh throughout his career, this is probably one of his better years that he's had, and so you might as well pull him in while he's on a hot streak and try to jumpstart your pitching staff a little bit. He can easily start. He could be a reliever. He can kind of do whatever is needed of him. He might not like being moved to relief, but he's probably happy being on a contending team as opposed to the perennial dumpster fire, I guess.
Well, absolutely, and he obviously knows how to pitch in the AL East, and then should Boston get into the playoffs, he's not going to be one of your playoff starters, but that's a really strong relief arm to have, and that's kind of what they did. That's what they did in the playoffs last year. They used, Eovaldi in that similar type of role where he was their starter, and then when they got in the playoffs, they used him till his arm literally fell off.
Yeah. And Cashner can throw hard, so that's the kind of guy you want pitching relief anyway.
Absolutely. I do think it's a smart move, and it's a very Dave Dombrowski-esque move. He's getting ahead of the, of the curve, so to speak, with the trade deadline looming. So, good move, and we're gonna segue that into sort of our close. The closer for today's show, we're going to quickly give our all-star thoughts and then kind of go into the trade deadline and some predictions that you and I have. Obviously, during our little hiatus, the all-star game and home run derby happened, and Matt and I did not really watch either. So it's hard to give perspective off stuff we didn't see. I think the crux of what happened is just saying Vlad Guerrero Jr. 100 times over. That was
91 times? Is it 91 times?
I see what you did there. That was a prolific performance, but everybody's going to have a different opinion of this. I know people that watched. Ruben, for example, watched both and just had a great time.
Light up our phones during the derby. I know.
He is safe, by the way. He has not been abducted. For his comments.
Our senior Puerto Rican correspondent.
Yeah, for any of his comments about the DR or anything. But I have a hard time watching the All-Star. It's fun. It's the best players, or thereabouts in the league. But since they took away the outcome of the game determining home field advantage for, the World Series. And I know people that absolutely hated that it came down to that. But to me, it was, for something. The biggest problem I have with a lot of the All-Star games, Pro Bowl, anything is it's not for anything. It's just, it's a fun spectacle, but it's ultimately meaningless. And there's so many things combating for our attention that I'd rather go do something else. I mean, it's not a whole lot of a point to me.
I think the All-Star game that does it the best, I think, because you look at, like you said, the Pro Bowl, the different All-Star games, all that. I think for pure spectacle, I think the NBA really understands what an All-Star game is about. There's zero defense in that game. It's just people running around, dunking the ball, making crazy passes. I mean, they kind of play defense in the fourth quarter.
It's the NBA. They don't really play defense, period, though.
Sure. But as for pure spectacle, that's probably your best All-Star game, I guess you could say.
I like the NHL All-Star.
I was going to say their format's a little bit different. They make it, a little more interesting with the different divisions and, the bracket style setup that they have or whatever. Honestly, I watched the skills competition for NHL specifically. I watched that kind of stuff, the NBA, the dunk contest, the home run derby, things like that. I think to me, that's more what people are going to be remembering and enjoying anyway. Versus the actual All-Star game. I don't think everyone's going to remember Vlad Guerrero Jr. hitting 90 home runs in the Derby. No one's going to remember that the AL won 4-3
the
for
AL,
whatever,
The AL always wins the All-Sar game.
It was like 19 of the last 22 or something with
like
a tie in one of those.
Would you, I think it was the Korean, the KBO, I think has a skills competition. I think they have bunting skills and random little things.
I think that would be way more interesting because you have the home run derby. Not everyone is going to be competing in that because not everyone can blast 90 home runs in an hour or whatever. But if you have hitting the ball to specific areas or a bunting challenge or a speed challenge, who can run the bases the fastest, I think people would like that more than just watching an exhibition game where people are half trying. I guess I don't know.
I agree with that. Let us know your thoughts on that, what you would prefer, and maybe I'll put that out as a Twitter question. But kind of to close out the show today, just wanted to talk about the trade deadline. We've alluded to that throughout the show, and just give our predictions, things that we think might happen now that some things are in motion. Matt, give me your top 3 predictions that you think could happen, the trade deadlines, somebody on the move or any deals you think might go down.
Well, I think Bumgarner's going to be moved at some point. I don't know who he's going to be traded to. I'm trying to think who needs starting pitching. I guess Boston maybe could use him.
He's on their no trade. They're on his no trade list.
Oh, then I don't know.
I agree with you on Bumgarner. I do think Mad Bum gets moved. I think that, and just from different things that I've read, and I think I'm going to tie the Yankees almost into every starting pitching because we need starting pitching.
Sure.
But I think Mad Bum might end up going to the Twins. I think that the Giants could get a huge haul for Mad Bum and their reliever Will Smith. I was going to make some kind of Fresh Prince joke, but I just I thought I would absolve all of you from having to hear something stupid. Either the Twins or the Braves could certainly use another starter and use a reliever and use their farm to try and pry those two. I do think, for whatever reason, and I'm probably going to be wrong, but I do think there's 2 teams that I think are going to package a starter and a reliever. One of them is the Giants with Madison Bumgarner and Will Smith. The other, and I'm tying the same teams together, the Twins and the Yankees have been rumored to be looking at Marcus Stroman and then Ken Giles. So I think that it's very possible one of those 2 teams gets a package of one and then the other team gets the other package that they didn't. If that makes sense.
That's fair.
Ken Giles is most noted for giving up a home run and then punching himself to the Yankees, actually. I forgot which Yankee hit the home run off of him, and then he proceeded to punch himself in the face when he was with the Astros.
Sounds about right.
That's some classic Ken Giles. That's the kind of competitor you want. He's willing to give himself a concussion. That way he learns.
I don't know about that.
He learns and then doesn't remember because of the concussions, but...
Maybe it's just his way of forgetting so he can go to the next pitch without any sort of memory whatsoever of it.
That's entirely possible. Another, an interesting thing is you hear rumors about Trevor Bauer getting moved, and the Indians are,
they're competing still.
They're a wild card team right now. I think the 2 spots would go to Tampa and Cleveland at the moment.
Yep.
It's interesting because the Indians are not winning that division. The Twins are going to win that division.
Sure.
But I think the main thing that worries Cleveland and their fans is maybe the offense. Their outfield's a little weak, and not for the sake of homerism, but they're still interested in getting Clint Frazier back. So, but the Yankees have said that they don't want to trade Clint Frazier for essentially a rental. I think next year might be Bauer's last year of arbitration. I'd have to look, but Bauer's probably. He's an interesting case study because the guy is clearly probably the best pitcher available. Young guy, throws hard, which is the Yankees' kind of MO. But people have questioned personality. He likes to get into Twitter wars with people. Is he going to blow up at New York media? It's interesting. I mean, he would be my favorite pick to go to the Yankees just because the guy's a tremendous pitcher. But you have to wonder, how he would, we can't speak for the guy, but how somebody like that would handle those pressures of being scrutinized constantly, and when you have a combative personality. Because even though I like the guy, it's a combative personality.
Sure. I mean, I think New York's a very tough place to play if you have that combative personality. Like you said, I think when those big personalities come in there, and if they have a bad game here or a bad game there. New York is very quick to rain down the boos and the whatever's at them. I don't know. I mean, I think the fact that they need starting pitching, though, I think the fact that he can move from, a team that is still competing to a team that's clearly going to, I think you guys are going to win the division at this point. I don't think Tampa's catching you. I don't think Boston's going to catch you. That extra boost really does a number for the team, even if it is a combative personality and all that.
I don't actually, and we'll kind of recap at the end of this, I don't actually think the Indians will end up moving Bauer, at least now, maybe in the offseason. But the sort of low rumbling move that I think could actually happen, and I think it could happen in one of 2 ways. The Diamondbacks, even though that they're competing a little bit for a vaunted wild card spot in the National League, can move Robbie Ray. And Robbie Ray is he's not as sexy as a name, so to speak, as like a Bumgarner or Stroman or somebody. But the guy quietly has just phenomenal fastball rates. He's a great pitcher. I think the Yankees have been looking at him for quite some time, and the Diamondbacks and the Yankees usually can match up pretty well. Not quite the Jack Sarizic Mariners left and right trade phenomena, but the Diamondbacks and the Yankees can match up pretty well. And there's one of 2 ways that I think that can happen, and one of which is the Yankees, giving them some sort of good future piece, whether that's a Clint Frazier or a Thairo Estrada, and a good pitching prospect, and a Jonathan Loaizaga or somebody of that sort. But another way, and maybe a way that might be more advantage for both teams, and I'm strictly saying advantage in terms of getting the pitching that the Yankees desperately need and also doing the Diamondbacks sort of a favor, is people kind of forgot about Zach Greinke. Zach Greinke has a monstrous contract, and an ability to absorb some of those dollars, which the Yankees can and may be willing to do, could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You could get 2 top-flight starters in one fell swoop. And I think that kind of move, with the Yankees not really loving giving up a lot of their young potential major league talent, which nobody really does, but the Yankees have been a little bit more.
I think just in general, people are more hesitant to give up their star players like that.
Yeah. So that would be a curious case, and I'm just throwing stuff out there. I don't have any inside sources or something, but I think that could be an interesting move.
I would agree. I think if it's purely from and I think that's going to be the overall theme, I guess, with this trade deadline. I think teams in general are just more reluctant to trade those minor league pieces, those position players. I think that's the model that's worked for so many teams. You look at Houston, you look at Chicago, you look at Boston. They stockpiled those position players and just rose up from the depths basically to compete. I think a lot of teams are seeing that and not wanting to trade those players so quickly. So purely from a financial standpoint, I think those bigger market teams like the Yankees or even the Dodgers, I don't know if they are going to make any moves really necessarily. They're kind of running away with the National League at this point. Those are the teams that are going to look to those kind of albatross contracts and absorb it because they know that they can, and because, like you said, Greinke is still a good pitcher. Ray is still a good pitcher. I mean, these are really good players that you can get for not breaking up the farm doing that.
Ninja Cashman. The last kind of thing I'll speculate on, I'll see your opinion on it too. Not Yankees related. Surprising, I know. It just shocks the entire world. Shane Green and Matthew Boyd of the Tigers, I'm calling going to the Atlanta Braves. The Braves desperately need a solid reliever, closer-esque, and Shane Green is having a phenomenal year. Former Yankee, by the way. And another solid starter in Matthew Boyd, who I think is he's not under the radar. Teams are looking at the guy. He's having a great season. But I think the Braves snag those two to kind of fill their ills. And the reason I see teams trying to package, this is a case of both pieces being highly advantageous. And there's two ways it can go, and I know I'm sort of splitting the difference here. But I think you could get more when you're packaging those two kind of quantities. You could clean up on two separate deals, and I think what may hold up things till the 31st in and of itself. I think teams are going to try and sell pieces off individually at basically max rates before kind of having to compromise and package people for a better deal. I think that the buying teams are going to want those packages to give up sort of their top prospects for something, but I think the sellers are going to want to try and get as many of those top prospects for individual pieces. So trying to get two top 50 prospects for a Boyd and two top 50 prospects for a Shane Green, but then having to compromise it maybe a couple of top prospects and a major league level player for a package like that. So kind of they'll end up having to split the difference for that. I could be wrong.
Well, I think with the trade deadline ending on the 31st, or with the essentially all trades ending on the 31st, that's another month of trades that's not going to happen anymore. So I think teams are going to be more picky about the trades that they're actually going to make. I think you're going to see more of these package deals, these like bigger deals, as opposed to just one player for prospects or something. Just because of the fact that you're having to make these plans a month earlier than you normally would necessarily.
Yeah, I mean that's what I think we're going to end up seeing. But kind of just so we'll close out, and I'll give you 5 moves that I think will happen, and you kind of give me your buy or sell. You know what I mean?
All right.
And then we'll close out on that. So the first guy we talked about was Madison Bumgarner, and I'll keep it with starting pitchers so we don't go down too many rabbit holes here. Madison Bumgarner to the Twins.
I would do that.
You would do that?
In a heartbeat.
All right. Next up, I will go Marcus Stroman, and you know what? I sold myself on Arizona, so I will actually say Marcus Stroman. Without the Yankees, I've been thinking Stroman to the Yankees. I actually think Marcus Stroman to the Rays.
I think they need more relief help at this point.
They have a ton of relievers. I do think a top of the line starter would actually help them.
Now, with their game plan though, with the way that they use their starters in the relief pitching,
it's true. But you got to think that you burn out relievers by using them like that. And then they've had injuries to, it was Glasnow had an injury.
That's true.
So trying to get a little length. So you're going to sell on that because you think that they need to.
I'll sell on that because I think that I think they're going to be fine without it. They're probably going to have to give up some position players for that, and I think they're going to do it.
That's very true. Robbie Ray to the Yankees. He's loving it.
So I'd see more likely they get rid of Greinke for the contract. I see the Diamondbacks more likely to give up Greinke than Ray. To the Yankees specifically because they can absorb the contract.
That's fair. That's fair. Matthew Boyd to the Brewers.
Ugh.
I know you don't like it as a Cubs
I don't
fan.
like it, but I would do that move too. I really don't like that because the Brewers are making a huge. I think they're going to try to make. I mean, the NL Central's sort of up for grabs in general anyway. I think outside of Pittsburgh, I think anyone can win that division still. Even the Reds, honestly. Yeah, I don't like that, but I would do that if I were the Brewers.
And then I'll end on a reliever, Shane Green to the Braves.
Sure.
Yeah,
they need help, and I mean, pitching's the one area I think they need a lot of help. So, I think that's the overall theme, though, is just pitching in general. I think that's everyone's going to be trading. I think that rent to bat is sort of a lost commodity these days. I think it's just going to be all pitching the trade deadline.
All pitching at the trade deadline. That's what Matt and I are both.
That's my bold prediction.
That's our bold prediction. So we'll see if any of this shakes out. On this upcoming week's show, we will talk about any trades that do end up happening. We'll kind of scour the rumor mills and then kind of talk about where people actually are, being speculated on going, or what the closest rumblings are, and we'll inform you guys of that. Any other topics or anything you want Lord Matthew and I to broach on, let us know, and just no trades to the Mets, I'm guessing.
Well, they'll be trading players away probably.
They will be. We'll talk about maybe what's going on. I don't want to be. I'm not a Mets show, and Ruben's not going to be here next week, so.
Oh. Maybe Syndergaard will be on another team.
Maybe Syndergaard will be. So yeah, until next week, maybe Syndergaard will be on another team. We'll talk to you guys next week. Thank you.